Hello everyone and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, The Lost Planeswalker. And today I want to look over the best elf commander. This year has already had some amazing cards, including 5 new elf commanders come out so far. Elves are one of the biggest and most popular creature types because it has so many influences on many different types of media and is generally something that people know if they don't know anything about Magic the Gathering. So it's something easy to grasp onto whether you're a new player or old player. So what makes a good elf commander? So this video is going to focus in on tribal synergies. So in most tribal decks, we want to have cards that will enhance all of our creatures or give them an ability that we can take advantage of. We're going to look at these unique effects to help us as we go. I'm also going to limit the color combinations to white, black, and green. While there are some good elves in red and blue, the majority of elf cards fall into these 3 colors and give us the best colors to build our deck with. There's a total of 60 elf commanders in these colors, and 31 of them have come out in the last 3 years. Elves, and especially elf commander creatures, are being ramped up and new ones are coming out with each set. Let's look into some of the different elf commanders from Magic's past all the way to the present and see which elf commander is worth building your next deck around. Going all the way back to the first legendary elf creature, we have Lady Kalaria from Legends. For 7 mana, this is an expensive elf with a large butt, so it can take a hit or two. This card really doesn't do much in any tribal deck, but it's just worth showing off as the first elf commander you can play. Now our first elf tribal commander is from Tempest with Eldamri, Lord of Leaves. Eldamri Lord of Leaves abilities are actually quite unique even for today's standards, giving other elves Forest Walk and Shroud, keeping them from being removed from your opponents. Cards like Yavimaya Cradle of Growth makes this so all your opponents' lands are forests, making it much easier for you to swing in without worried about your creatures being blocked. The majority of elf cards are green, so building a mono green deck would not be difficult. When adding black or white still opens up your possibilities with removal and other keywords that can make your deck really strong too. Eldamri Lord of Leaves will be added to our shortlist, but let's look over our next commander. We're going to talk about 3 elves from a very elf-centric set. Lorwyn, Morningtide, and Shadowmoor with Nath of the Gilt Leaf, Riz the Exiled, and Riz the Redeemed. Nath of the Gilt Leaf has your opponent discard a card at random and make an elf whenever they do. This is a pretty cool ability, and it is different from most other elf strategies, but really doesn't support us with much more than a 1/1 elf per turn. Riz the Exiled and Riz the Redeemed is a legendary creature evolving as the story is developed. Riz the Exiled can help you gain a lot of life and protect itself, but Riz the Redeemed is the true diamond in the rough here. You can play him on turn 1 and start creating elves, or use a more powerful second ability to create a copy of each token you control. This ability makes him very powerful and pushes him in front of the pack. This card works best in decks that makes a lot of big tokens. And elves are small and plentiful, but for the cost, it's not the best value you can get. Don't get me wrong, this is one of the most powerful elf cards in my opinion, but keeping a tribal theme in mind, there is better cards that care about just elves and will get better payoffs for them. Yuzuri, Renegade Leader from Scars of Mirrodin, is going to be one of the more powerful elf commanders. His ability to regenerate any elf is extremely powerful and can even be used to save your whole board. His second ability is extremely scary, being able to buff all of your creatures to such a high amount. For 10 mana, you can activate it twice, buffing all your creatures +6/+6 with trample, and it is quite frightening. This is an ability that can be taken use of offensively or defensively, and can be used to end the game very quickly. This is also making our shortlist. Duenna of Gilt Leaf Dane is our next elf commander that has some very similar text to Riz the Exiled. They act as a lord and will buff all of your elves, which can add up having multiple lords in a single deck. They also have an ability to gain 1 life whenever they attack for each attacking elf. This ability is not as good as Riz because your commander has to attack and all of your creatures have to also be attacking for you to really benefit from it. The addition of reach is nice, but there are much better commanders today. Mayara, Thorn of the Glade, Nadir, Agent of Dusknell, and Numa, Jorgana, Chieftain are the next 3 contenders from Commander Legends. The cool part with these 3 cards is that you can choose how you want to partner them up. Mira, Thorn of the Glade, is a card draw engine that can provide you with an advantage as your elves die. Nadir, Agent of Dusknell, can use your tokens dying to get bigger, and whenever it dies, create a big token. And finally, Numa, Jorgan Chieftain, uses the overwhelming mana production from all your mana dorks to pump up your elves on your board. Any pair you can make is going to be really strong and give you lots of options when you're building a deck. The only downside being is that if there's a board wipe, you're going to be spending a little bit more time recasting your commanders. The next 2 elves we're going to cover are also from Commander Legends, and one of them is the current most popular elf commander. We have Abomination of Llanowar and Lathril Blade of Elves. Abomination of Llanowar gets better as the game progresses, as the power and toughness are determined by the amount of elves on the battlefield and in your graveyard. With this creature having menace, you will want to attack every turn to make your opponents have to block it. Lathril Blade of Elves is the current number 1 elf commander for various reasons. Lathril is only a 2/3 for 4 mana, but has menace. Their first ability helps you create more elves whenever you deal combat damage to a player. Once you have enough elves, you can drain the entire table and you gain life by tapping down some of the creatures you control. This elf takes control of the game, and at a certain point, unless you're playing against a life gain deck, there's little to no chance for your opponents to be able to get back in the game. There are also many different ways you can build this deck, and it's no wonder why it's as popular as it is. Our next elf commander is from Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. This is a famously undervalued set with some really great creatures, including Jaheira, Friend of the Forest. This mono green commander makes all your tokens tap for green mana. In addition, you can choose background to act not only as a second color, but can be used to build up your own strategy however you like. While Jaheira, Friend of the Forest doesn't specifically work with only elves, this type of strategy is very similar and makes a lot of sense. Looking at a commander from a special product, we have Game Knights 2022 that gives us potentially one of the most powerful elf commanders to date, Emerald, the Elfheim Elite. Emerald Elfheim Elite gets bigger based on the number of elves you control. Elf ball decks are notorious for spitting out lots of tokens, along with your other normal elves. This can easily make Emerald super large. Emerald Elfheim Elite second ability is the real victory here, with it being able to deal damage as though it wasn't blocked. This means you can pump your commander to knock out an opponent with normal or commander damage, and they can't even block to stop you from killing them. The last 2 elf commanders are from the newly released March of the Machine Aftermath, and it is Nissa, Resurgent Animist, and Tyvar, the Bellicose. Nissa, Resurgent Animist is a very powerful card and quite pricey at the moment. Nissa acts similarly to a Lotus Cobra and generates you a mana when a land enters the battlefield. If this is the second time it has resolved this turn, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal an elf or elemental. You ramp and also get creatures, which seems like a very strong ability and makes this a very powerful card. Now lastly, but certainly not least, we have Tyvar, the Bellicose. This is honestly the card that convinced me to make this video to begin with. Tyvar gives all attacking elves Death Touch. This is a super powerful ability to make sure that no one at the table chumps your small creatures or they'll lose theirs too. Tyvar's second ability is truly something to fear, with him giving each elf the ability to grow bigger when they tap for mana. There are some elves that will instantly become massive, and not only do your opponents have to deal with Death Touch, but potentially large creatures as well. This is one of the best elf commanders, in my opinion. Now that we've looked over 30 years of legendary elves, let's take a look at which ones are the most powerful. From the ones I discussed building an elf tribal deck, we have Odomri, Lord of Leaves, Yuzuri, Renegade Leader, Lathril, Blade of Elves, Imara, Elfheim Elite, and Tyvar the Bellicose are standout commander elves. Eliminating 2 off the bat, we have Eldamri, Lord of Leaves, and Amira, Elfheim Elite. These are 2 amazing cards, and I would suggest them for any elf commander deck. But without being able to get a Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth out, or basically just a board wipe, these 2 commanders become far less powerful. From the remaining 3 commanders, the 3rd place goes to Yuzuri, Renegade Leader. This is a great way to end the game, but looking over its popularity in the last couple of years, we can see it just isn't up to par. And then lastly, in the number 1 and 2 spots, we have Tyvar the Bellicose as number 1 and Lathril, Blade of Elves coming in at number 2. Tyvar presents some great advantages over Lathril that will outpace this 2-year-old commander. With the power to give all elves evasion and make them too large to handle, Tyvar is the winner in the best elf commander in 2023. Now, before I sign off, I just want to give an extra special thank you to Ashley Evans of Supernova Jewelry. We played some cards this last weekend, and I really enjoyed talking to her. And she gave me one of these amazing pins that she makes. I'm going to leave a link in the description to her store on Facebook, but you can also find her at Bell's Comics and Cards in Grove City, Pennsylvania, if you live nearby. The link to the store will be in the description below, and thank you again, Ashley. Well, everyone, do you agree with my picks for the best elf commander, or am I way off? Please leave your answer in the comments below. If you liked this video, please leave me a thumbs up and check out my channel for the other content like this and more. If you want to see my content on a regular basis, please consider subscribing to my channel. We are so close to 500 subscribers, and I really appreciate everyone who has joined me on this journey. Thank you so much, everyone. And as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.